Start by acknowledging the loss of the Queen last week, and God bless the King. God save the Queen. King. We'll start this morning. First order on the docket here is to adopt the agenda for today. Michelle moves to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the minutes from the August 8th meeting. Any questions, discussion regarding that? Dan moves approval of the minutes from the August 8th meeting. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so first for consideration today is, it's at 10:15. Are you folks here for the wall construction application? Are you all your representatives here, or are you waiting for someone? Okay, so if you want to take the chairs up front, please. Okay, so this is development application 22/204. Becky, are you going to be? Okay, Aaron, are you going to be doing these then? Go ahead.
Yeah. The applicant is requesting approval from the MPC to construct a 1,600-foot shop. The principal dwelling on the site did not require waivers and was approved as 22/199 by the development officer on August 9th, 2022. The proposed shop consists of a 1,200 square foot enclosure with a 400 square foot canopy, which brings the total site area of the shop to 1,600 square feet. This is a 25% variance, which can only be approved by the MPC. The total site coverage of the approved house and proposed shop on the site is 45.9%. A stormwater management plan was submitted with the application done by a qualified engineer, which approves the total site coverage of the house, proposed shop, and hard surfacing in the site to 45.9%. Any additional development on the site will require approval from the county and will require a revised stormwater management plan. In accordance with section 2.4.4 of the land use bylaw, MPC may waive or vary development standards, notwithstanding that the proposed development does not comply with this bylaw in the opinion of the MPC that the development would not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring properties. In Land Use Bylaw 22/09, under the Hamlet Residential District, it states new accessory buildings shall not exceed 1,200 square feet in area. It also states the maximum building area for all accessory buildings cannot exceed 1,500 square feet. The maximum combined floor area for the new accessory building is proposed to be 1,600 square feet and requires approval of MPC. This is a 25% variance. No development officer discretion is permitted for this variance due to the proposed variance being greater than 1.0 meter or 10% of the land use bylaw standard, whichever is greater under section 2.26 of the land use bylaw. So we have basically standard conditions here for an accessory building. We do have condition number 8, where we're approving the site relaxation of 400 square meters. And we also have a condition number 9 under option 1, where we require any additional hard surfacing to be approved by Cypress County. And also for council or MPC's consideration, we do have a second option here where the proposal is refused. However, planning staff would be supportive of option 1. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Aaron. First of all, would the applicants just introduce yourself and describe your relationship to this application, if you will, and then you can speak to the conditions as presented. Okay.
We're the contractor for the clients. The proposed building, the shop meets the minimum or the maximum requirements of the 1,200. It's just a overhang, which they're planning on using. They have pets for a shaded area, for firewood. The intent is never to close in that overhang. So it hasn't really maxed out the site coverage. It's a reasonable sized bi-level home or raised bungalow home with not a very large attached deck on the back, so it's not oversized for the area that's in there. The side yard where the shop will be borders on a non-landscaped roadway allowance, so it's not adjacent to another property. The property directly behind, as you can see in the picture, is also a walking path in an undeveloped area, so it's not really encroaching in any neighbor's view or any neighbors shading their yard or any sort of thing like that. The house right now is being constructed, foundations going in. It's definitely developed that area quite a bit. All the old trees have been torn down, it's cleaned up. The home's all adjacent because it is in the older area of the Dunmore development. There's quite a few homes with varying, sizes and shops and garages. This would definitely be more of an asset in the neighborhood than looking for consideration to make it any less of a neighborhood. Yeah.
In addition, the Planning Commission do have some additional pictures that we can show as well.
Please do.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's looking at the south. There's an undeveloped road allowance next to where the proposed garage is going to be located. That undeveloped road allowance provides additional setback between the shed and the adjacent property. So I think that any variances that we approve, any impact would be lessened due to that wider setback caused by the undeveloped road allowance in between this lot and the adjacent lot. And this is looking east. We can go to the next one. And this is looking east again. Then the proposed shop location is shown on the site. This is looking north.
Yes.
That's the neighboring property. And this is south. So, as I said before, if we look at the south side of the parcel where the proposed garage is going, there's quite a separation between the shop and the adjacent house. And then this is looking west. Conclude.
Thank you. Does the applicant have anything else to speak about regarding the conditions and such as presented? Okay. I'll open the floor to discussion for Planning Commission. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I understand. So there's no setback rule or problems or anything with this stuff, that's fine, but I don't have a problem with going up to 1,500 square feet because we've done it before on properties in the hamlet because there's no other buildings on there, so we give you the one size for everything. I do have a problem with going over by that 100 because then we set precedents, and we all know it comes in here every time that it's, well, you did it for them. So I don't have a problem doing it at 1,500 square feet for the one-time shot. That means you don't get any other sheds or anything on there, just so you understand that. I don't have a problem doing that, but I do have a problem with the 1,600.
Anything else? Go ahead, Nigel.
Just a clarification from the county staff here, perhaps. If I recall correctly, the site plan showed the driveway is gravel. So would that mean that if the Alharts or somebody in the future wanted to pave it, they'd have to come back to the county for that hard surfacing limitation?
Through the chair, the hard-packed gravel would be considered part of the site coverage, as would asphalt. So it would still be impervious,
Okay,
whether
thank
it's hard-packed or asphalt.
Okay. Yeah, I share those concerns with Dan. You know, it's when we take one step, it ends up being 2, 3, 4 in those areas. So I kind of am in agreement with you on that.
I don't have a problem making motion for 1,500 if it's good with the
Go ahead.
Can I just point out that I'm on now? Okay. When we're figuring out the calculations, it's kind of slighted when we say 1,500, 1,600, because you look at the shop, that's a footprint of the shop, and they always have the overhangs. Now, the overhangs are not calculated in as site coverage, no different than the city of Medicine Hat or Cypress County. So when we calculate in the overhang, we're calculating in possibly what could be covered in, but you still always have your overhang, same with the house. So when you look at those numbers, they may not be true numbers with how we look at it. Just something to consider, you know, where you draw the line at 1,500 or 1,600, because it is an open overhang that has a footprint and then your standard 2-foot overhang. Just something to put out there for thought, that this is just all overhang. Yeah.
Okay. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The way I guess the land use bylaw is interpreted is we're only considering, I guess, the square footage of what's contained inside the walls. So certainly, yes, there is the overhang of the eaves of the roof, but it's basically when we make our decision on the square footage of the building, it's basically of what's contained inside the perimeter of the walls. So I think with when Councillor Hamilton was commenting about the fact that 1,500 square feet, so would be, I guess, the dimensions of the building, what he seems to believe would be acceptable in his mind would be, for the example of, I guess, 30 feet by 50 feet, right, which would equal the 1,500 square feet in total building area, if I'm correct. Now, obviously, there could be other configurations that would equal up to 1,500 square feet, but that was just the easy grade 6 math in my head. But I guess the other thing, Mr. Chairman, is that if if the Municipal Planning Commission was able to come to some sort of an arrangement with the applicants for an approval on today, we would certainly need a revised site plan submitted to the development officer to reflect whatever the approval is, if it deviates away from what is applied for today. So.
Well, and the application would have to be amended, correct? To, you know, we just can't arbitrarily say 1,500 instead of 16. We have to have that amended with agreement by them.
Yeah, they have to agree with it.
Right, yeah.
But it wouldn't change the site coverage, it'd actually go down on the site coverage.
Right. So question to you, Jeffrey, what's the maximum eave length that would, before it's considered a carport or overhang?
Yeah, I don't think that that's something that the land use bylaw really addresses. So, you know, generally based on the pitch of the roof, you know, whatever the overhang, I guess the bottom line is if there was a significant amount of eaves that would overhang into or above the property, that would enable it to be able to be enclosed as a carport or any kind of enclosed structure, you know, then we would have to address it at that particular time with a separate development application. And that may require having to come to the Municipal Planning Commission again for an increase in the size of the accessory building because it doesn't comply with the land use bylaw.
So quick question, and this may be off topic a little bit, but so the overhang, if it was, say, an 8-foot overhang, would be considered part of the site coverage, but not part of the building area, based on the fact the building area is by a foundation.
I'll defer to the development officer and the assistant planner to help answer the question.
Chair, the way I interpret the land use bylaws, anything that's covered with a roof would be considered site coverage. So
So the eave area, under the eave would be considered site coverage, but the foundation would be the footprint of the building we're considering. Okay, just for clarification, thank you. Would you like to speak?
When we do calculate out, it's usually like on this drawing or even setbacks are to the property, to the building. I think in the city, they allow up to a 2-foot overhang before they consider it to be more. that's why when we look at the accessory buildings where we were trying to get the consideration was our building is only 1,200 square feet and the overhang makes up the rest of the square footage that they're looking for. Because it's the building and then it has kind of like a lean-to on the side.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Just so it's clear.
It's still the size, we had this, if you remember correctly, not too long ago, and we were gonna make him take it down because of the lean-to. It put him over his square footage. So we ended up giving an exception, but it was only because it was up already. Otherwise, we wouldn't have approved it.
So what are you saying, if they construct it, we allow it? If
No, no, I'm not saying that. They're in
Go
here.
ahead.
No, but that was that case, remember? We allowed it because it was too much hassle.
No, I don't
taking
remember
the-
that.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, sorry.
But-
It was, yeah, go ahead, Becky.
I was just going to add and say that, yeah, in the past we've added, or we've included lean-tos in the square footage in the case that the next owner closed it in. So we've always counted those lean-tos as part of that square footage, not the eaves, just a full lean-to.
Yeah, because your rafters would allow you to close it in after the fact. If they were to move on and somebody else moved in, they could close it in and it would be part of the structure.
That would have to be permitted, so it would have to be,
Not if it's already there.
you don't have to apply for a permit to enclose a,
Not if it's already there, because you already got your square footage covered.
really?
Yes.
Interesting, okay. All right. So the footprint of this building then is, and you have a 4-foot overhang then?
So is it part of your rafters then? Your design of your rafters?
How the trusses were designed is that it is a separate truss that's added onto the side of the building. And our,
So it's that, it's covering the concrete area on the diagram to the north of the building?
yes,
Okay. Okay, so it's an,
concrete, yes, north of the building, sorry, yeah. We've kept the buildings, we've kept the building overhangs tighter. We're at a 2-foot overhang for our eave versus a 1-foot overhang versus a 2-foot, but, you know, I don't know how that all factors in, yeah.
So does your foundation then go all the way out to support that?
No, it doesn't. It's supported by pads and piles and posts on the outside, just like a typical lean-to.
go ahead, Jeffrey.
If it's okay with with the development officer, perhaps, Donna, if you have just a picture there of what the profile of the building would look like, maybe we could just pass that between the planning commission members so they could get an idea of what it looks like.
It's hard to tell off of this.
And then it'll circulate.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no dimensions on the diagram we were given. Okay.
It still looks like one building.
Is it 8 feet then? I don't see it. 4-foot concrete slab, 4 feet, or 4-inch, sorry. Okay, 3.04 meters, so 9 feet.
It's 9, is it 9 feet then? The
3.04, so 2.44 is 8, so 9-ish. No, that's 10. 3.04 is 10. Yeah. So that casts a little bit of a different light on it, doesn't it?
It can still be closed in the future. Because they've got the pads in place, so it would carry the weight of a wall.
Yeah, it'd be a workaround, wouldn't it? So to bring that down another 100 feet wouldn't be that much. Instead of 10, you go 9 or 8.
Your length, so yeah, you're only taking a foot off if we drop it 100 feet.
I think the intent would be if we have to reduce it, talking with the homeowners, we would shorten it. We would keep it the same width because you kind of need that width to make it worthwhile if you're going to park a vehicle or, you know, you need that 10 feet. So we would just shorten it either from the back or from the front and bring it in that way and just change the front roof plan by, I never calculated out, I think we'd have to take 4 feet off or 5 feet off. So it's not affecting the project completely, you know, by any means. Just wanted to put all the information out there to, I don't know, not just set a precedence, but, you know, make sure that we're doing it right. Yep.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to prevent.
Yep. Yep.
That's-
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
I think I agree with Dan, because if we allow this 1,600 feet or square feet, in the future, somebody's going to come back and say, oh, well, you gave them 1,600 feet, we want 1,700. Like, it's just going to snowball, I think.
I guess the question is, would you be willing to change it to the 1,500 square feet to make it comply? We're still giving you, we're allowing to go over that 300 square feet because it's supposed to be only 1,200, but we're given if you'll give.
So what's your rationale for 15 versus what's accepted right now?
Because that's what we're allowed for full site coverage.
For
with
site
all
coverage. That's the rationale, is site coverage.
Site coverage for all accessory buildings.
Okay.
We're just giving it to them in one building.
Okay, Jeffrey?
Just to clarify, I don't think we're talking site coverage. We're talking total accessory square footage.
Okay,
1,500 square feet is the total maximum square footage of accessory buildings
Okay.
in a hamlet residential district.
Right. okay. So, we've done that in the past.
And anything addressing site coverage, as Aaron has alluded to, would require the applicants or any future homeowners to have to come back with a professionally designed stormwater management plan that addresses all of whatever the additional site coverage would be. So,
Okay, all right,
But this is going less, so we don't
Yep.
have to worry about that.
gotcha. So are we in agreement here? You're going to amend those plans? That works? Okay,
We haven't submitted for application. We have it on our main building plans that we used for the house application. So we'll amend it and resubmit just with the accessory building separate. Yeah.
okay.
Through the chair, that would be sufficient.
Okay. All right, so Dan moves approval of 22/204 as amended and with the conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. So your development permit has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there is now a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of this permit. The development permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks. If no appeal is filed within those 21 days, the development permit will become valid at that time. If you have any further questions, you may contact the development officer after today to discuss them. Thank you. Okay, so 10:30, we have the Schuler Community Association. Will they be attending? Is that you? No? Okay. All right. Okay, so I guess while we are awaiting that, let's look at let's do the planner's report. I don't know if there was. So nobody's presenting for? Yes?
Yes, our assistant planner, Becky, will present or answer any questions that the MPC may have.
Okay. Great. So a question on the property near Cypress Hills. You probably went up. Did you go out or you don't go out anymore? To the property south of the hills there that has the campground?
Aaron would have attended
Did
that.
you go out there?
Yeah, through the chair, I went out there, took some photos, and there was 5 RVs out there, which is the maximum number allowed on the site. We did send a letter to the owner, but we haven't heard back yet from them. However, the number of RVs on the site does not exceed 5.
Okay. So the question I have is, RVs are one thing, use is another. So if I'm storing 5 RVs on my farm, is that different than me having a campground?
Mr. Chairman, I believe having 5 RVs stored there is a different intensity in the use. They're just parked there, they're not doing anything, whereas if you have a campground, you do have people there, you do have associated noise and other issues involved with the campsite rather than just storing vehicles. Vehicles don't make noise by themselves.
Okay, so the letter to the owner stated what?
Mr. Chairman, the letter stated that if they wanted to have more than 5 RVs, they would need to apply for a campground or an RV storage permit. But from looking at the photos, there appear to be only 5
Okay.
RVs there.
Are those 5 being used as camping in?
The sides of the RVs were pulled in, so it did not look as if they were occupied.
They spotted you coming down the road.
So I have 6 quarters near there, I could have 30 campsites. Beautiful.
With the slides in.
Oh, slides in, okay.
Through the chair, that have to be on separate parcels.
Right, yeah, that's what I mean. If they're in the corner. Anyway, just kidding. Yeah, too late now. I gotta do another business plan in the meantime. Okay, I mean, I was under the understanding it was not storage, but, I mean, that's, I guess, up to the applicant, or the landowner to explain, right?
When staff are in that area, we will continue to monitor and take photos to make sure it doesn't turn into a campsite in the spring or whenever.
Okay, perfect. Anything else? Any questions, concerns, discussion? Bring it on. So the SDDAB found in favor of the school development for the colony. What were the grounds for the opposition to that?
Yeah, the opposition primarily centered around water usage on the colony, and it may be affecting adjacent landowners and their water sources. So that was the biggest concern, I think, that was shown.
But those people already live there, so how's that going to change the water usage? I guess then, yeah.
There were concerns with roads, with busing, or not busing, I guess, but the road use came up as well. But it was primarily water concerns.
Just from the reference point of going down the road when we have these applications is maybe something to discuss, right? With the applicant. Okay. Anything else? Anybody want to move it? Jeremy? Sure. Jeremy moves approval of the planner's report as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Want a break? Okay. We have a request for a break, so we will have a 3-minute break. I have nothing, well, no, we'll just, yeah, we can have a break. 3 minutes. You are? Okay. Would you take one of the chairs up front, please? Okay, next application for consideration today is 22/209 Schuler Community Association. Are you Marilyn? Okay, all right, good. Okay, so 22/209, take it away, Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Schuler Community Association is proposing to install a 5x10 electronic display sign to be located on the side of the school that will be visible from First Avenue West. The sign will be located 9 feet off the ground and will project approximately 6 to 8 inches off the wall. The intent of the sign is to inform the public of school events, community happenings, and other information that would be relevant to the residents. The applicant is requesting approval from Municipal Planning Commission because one variance is requested. In the land use bylaw 22-0/09, under section 15.6, it states the electronic display sign must be at least 200 meters, which is 656 feet, away from a nearby dwelling or residential district, and must not directly face the nearby dwellings or residential districts. A lesser district may be considered and approved by the MPC. No other electronic signs are located on the subject site or in the vicinity of the school. The electronic display is proposed to be located only 200 feet away from the closest residence. The sign will not be pointing directly into the windows of the nearby residences. Staff recommend approving the variance because modern electronic signs can be programmed to be dimmed or turned off during certain times of the day. Impacts to adjacent residents will be minimal if the signs are dimmed or turned off at night. As mentioned in the letter of intent, the proposed sign is very similar to other digital signs that are in Medicine Hat, say at Crescent Heights High School and Medicine Hat High. And those signs are basically within 100 feet of residences in Medicine Hat. So the development officer's recommendation is to approve development permit application 22/209 subject to the following conditions. The conditions, the first two conditions are standard. With modern signs being programmable, we've asked that the content remain in place unchanged for a minimum of 6 seconds. And that way you don't have a flickering effect from stuff changing a lot. And the transition between each electronic display must not involve any visible effects, including but not limited to action, motion, fading in or out, dissolving, blinking, or intermitting or a flashing light, or the illusion of such effects. So the transitions need to be smooth and not flashing. Also, the condition 5, the sign must not include full motion video. That can be distracting. The sign must be dimmed to a maximum brightness of 500 nits from sunset to sunrise, as those times are established by the sunset-sunrise calculator of the NRC. Conversely, the sign may be turned off between sunrise and sunset. The development permit holder for a sign featuring an electronic display must ensure that the development authority is at all times possessions of the name and telephone contact information of a person in case if there's a malfunction in the sign. I do have some photographs of the site, Mr. Chairman. This is the school looking northeast, and the sign is going to be placed on that brick wall in the center of the photograph, and I'm standing about where 19 First Street West is located. And the next photo, we're looking northeast again, and I'm standing in front of 30 First Street West. And this is a close-up of where the sign will be placed on the building. We're facing northeast again. Next photo. That concludes our photos. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Aaron. Marilyn, would you like to speak to the application at this time? You can press the button on there. There you go.
I'm not sure that there's anything I can add, but do you have questions for me?
We may, yeah, okay. All right, I'll open up the floor to, go ahead, Lloyd.
I'm just wondering about residents in the area across the street or something, if, what their take is on this, have they been approached?
There's a letter contained within the
sorry.
packet from Mr. Schaefer, and I don't, was the other residents in question contacted? Did they provide a letter at all, or? I don't see a letter here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. I see Schaefer's, Mr. Schaefer's is in here, but. So it's identical to this one? Okay, all right. So both of those landowners with the dimensions presented within the packet have provided letters, correct? Okay. Go ahead, Michelle.
I just was going to add that where the sign is facing on that wall, Terry is directly across the street, and he has these massive trees in front of any windows, and his windows face north. And Eileen is across the street too, and her windows face east. Like everything in the front of her house where she would look out faces east. And there's no way I can see that that light is going to bother any of them in their houses, and they're both good with it.
Great. Okay, that satisfies me for sure.
And I'll move it.
Okay, and Michelle moves approval. All right. So Michelle moves approval of 22/209 as presented. All those in favor? Carried. So your development permit has been approved subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there's now a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of this permit. The development permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks. If no appeal is filed within those 21 days, the development permit will become valid. If you have any further questions after today, you can discuss them with the planner. Thank you very much. Okay, is Sabra Owen in attendance? Okay, if you would mind, take one of those chairs up front, please. Okay, so this is, so you're Sabra? Yes. Okay, so this is 22/210. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant has submitted a development application for MPC consideration for a vehicle storage use. The applicant proposes to park 2 trailers on the site and have up to 8 antique vehicles stored on the site. The vehicles belong to the owner. The applicant wishes to live on site in an RV on a temporary basis until a permanent residence is developed in the future. The reason for living on the site would be for a caretaker and security purposes. The construction of the new permanent caretaker security residence will necessitate the demolition of this existing house on the site. And I should note that there's an existing telecommunication tower on the site. The applicant has indicated that she will operate during daytime hours from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. The applicant will build an 8-foot-high fence with a gate around the property fronting Railway Street for screening purposes, and there'll be 1 employee on site, which would be the owner. The proposed use is closest to a recreational vehicle storage, which is a permitted use in the HI district. The applicant is proposing the storage of up to 8 antique cars for the owner's personal use and vehicle storage for customers. However, the proposal does not exactly fit the definition of RV storage in the land use bylaw, since the focus of the storage is antique vehicles rather than RVs. The proposal may be classified as another use in the land use bylaw, and as such would require MPC's consideration. Additionally, the proposed temporary caretaker's residence, temporary accommodation, also makes this a Class 2 discretionary use, which would require MPC's consideration. The proposed use will be a vehicle storage purpose only, and the applicant has stated that the site will not be used as an auto wrecking or salvage yard. The proposal is aligned with the 7 persons ASP because the site is remaining commercial industrial in its primary use. Public Works comments, there's nothing that can be, nothing is allowed to be parked in Hamlet streets, even on a temporary basis. There's water servicing the site from the back alley, sewers serviced from Railway Street. Public Works is unsure about the status of the water and sewer servicing. So when it comes time to build a new residence or further future development, that would have to be checked. Development Officer's recommendation, we're recommending approval of the proposal. And that would include the construction of an 8-foot high screening fence, be subject to an annual review and subject to a maximum of 8 vehicles and 2 semis or trailers to be stored on the site. And the site must not be used as a auto wrecking or salvage yard. And approval of future caretaker security residence on the site would require a separate permit. No on-street parking or staging of vehicles is permitted. And condition number 13, the applicant entering into an agreement with Cypress County to address, among other things, the length of time the temporary accommodation in the RV is allowed on the site and the method of water and sewer disposal while the RV is parked on the site. I have some photos of the site. Okay, so we're on Railway Street. We're looking east. That's the abandoned house on the property. If we go to the next photo, we're looking south now. We're next to Leonard Street, and Railway Street is to the south of us, and the proposed property is behind this tree. Next photo. And we're further back. Okay, we're looking southwest. The proposed property is on the right, and this is along Railway Street. Do we have another one? Okay, northeast. The proposed development site is shown, and an existing shed is also shown in this picture. And that is another picture of the existing shed, and that's looking northeast. And the proposed development site would be as noted. Northwest, proposed development site is noted. And looking west, we can see the existing cell tower in the property, and the development site is noted. Next picture. And this is north. We're in the back alley. The proposed, the property that we're, subject site is located on it's to the right, and the neighboring property to the north is on the left. And again, this is another photo showing the shed and the existing house and the development site. And this is another picture from the back alley showing the trees behind the site, which could provide some screening. Okay, and there's looking west, and existing house is visible. And is that it for photos?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Aaron. Sabra, would you like to speak to your application at this time?
I'm grateful for the help that the staff has given me here, talking to Ingrid and so, to help me get this worded correctly, because I don't do words well. And this is basically a retirement place for me that I can work on my antique vehicles.
Okay, I will open the floor to discussion. Planning Commission? I have a concern about RV, somebody living in an RV on an industrial Hamlet. This is Hamlet Industrial, correct?
HI.
Hamlet Industrial. I have concerns regarding occupation and living in a recreational vehicle within the hamlet, period.
That was going to be my question. What was your timeline on tearing down this house and building a new one that you're talking about in here?
My fifth wheel trailer is a 4-season trailer. It could be closed in and water and everything could be hooked to it for unlimited time, actually. And I have a mobile, what do they call that? A camper, but it's got a motor in it, motorhome. I have that, would be on site too, to go away for weekends or whatever.
So is that your plan for living in then? You're not going to tear this house down
The house is coming down, yes.
and you're going to build something else permanent?
The one on the northeast part of the house is 2-sided or 3-sided brick walls. And I plan on, once that is demolished off all the rest, that corner of the building possibly can be saved to put up some kind of a small residence, like a 2-bedroom residence or a garage.
So are you planning on staying in your RV all winter?
Not this year. I have accommodations in Barron's that I plan on staying for the winter there. But the RV is 4-seasonal, yes, and a matter of closing it in, and it's self-contained everything. And it's a 48-footer fifth wheel.
Jeffrey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once I guess you're done gathering information concerning the temporary residence, may I ask that the chairman ask the development officer or the applicant to maybe further expand a little bit and provide more further description of what the business that's related with the application, just so that there's clarity on that aspect as well.
Thank you for pointing that out. I will do so. Any other questions? Sabra, would you explain to us then the intent of the business that will be occupying this?
It's going not to be a business where I'm going to be selling anything. I may sell 1 or 2 of my antique vehicles when they are completed. Basically, it's for my own hobby and my own, it's not really a business, it's more of a hobby residential. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to clarify, and maybe Aaron, you could provide further clarity or further comment on that, because there was mention that there was a business associated. So I just wanted to make sure that the Planning Commission was understanding of what was involved.
It was going to be selling the occasional car, renting some storage space to people. There would be definitely a business component to this. And however, there'd also be the person's hobby that would be also contained within this site. So there would be a business element, and there'd also be a personal vehicle storage element as well.
Thank you. Question to anybody. Have we ever allowed somebody to live on a indefinite period in an RV on a hamlet industrial or residential lot in the hamlet of 7 persons or any other hamlet in the county?
Okay, well, Mr. Chairman, I guess due to the longevity of my career here, I guess I could answer that. Yeah, it's dating myself for sure. There have been an occasion where it was time limited, where the occupancy of the RV was restricted to a certain amount of time as other accommodations were being permanently put in place. But aside from that, nothing has been ever issued regarding permanent occupancy of an RV in a hamlet. And the reason for that is simple, is that, certainly the residents of any hamlet who, go to great lengths to keep their yards up and maintain and of course pay property taxes on their residential dwelling and their accessory buildings, would take opposition to somebody being able to just, I think, take permanent residency in a recreation vehicle. So for those reasons, the Planning Commission has never issued a permit for permanent residence, other than if it was in an appropriate recreation vehicle campground or something of that nature, but I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I was just why would staff recommend approval for something we've never approved before? I don't understand that.
Through the chair, under the new land use bylaw, we do have a use called temporary residential, I do believe. And also under condition number 13, we're asking for a development agreement that addresses the length of time that the person would be living in the RV and the method of water and sewer disposal. It's something new.
So has that been included in the package? I didn't see it.
It's condition number 13.
But what is it?
It's a development agreement.
Is it here? Like, okay, so
That's
a
something the
condition
applicant
being a
would be
development agreement, but I think given this is so new, I think in order for us to make a sound decision, we would need to know the details of that development agreement, not just agree to the fact that there's one going to be presented. Does that not make sense? Go ahead,
Still has to
Jeffrey.
be drafted.
Yeah, and I think to the point the development officer is making is that typically agreements are drafted and developed and executed after the approval is been given. But I think maybe it's prudent in this situation to provide some extra, if the MPC wants to consider approving this, to consider some extra conditions that might be built into the approval of the development permit that could then be used as part of the agreement that the development officer is referring to that would be drafted. So whether it's in terms of the length of time or that type of thing, might be valuable so that if this is approved, that the agreement is drafted up, that they know what the parameters are for, the temporary use of the RV as a residence would be for no greater than X amount of time period, and those types of details.
This is it, right. This is a different application if it's 2 months or indefinite. And as this application sits right now, it's indefinite. Right. I agree. Okay.
Sorry. I can't picture this being a permanent use. That's not something that we would allow. So there would have to definitely be consideration taken as to when a permanent caretaker residence can be built on this site.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
I think you answered my question, but my question is there ever been a residence, like a permanent residence built in an HI area before?
Through the chair, with industrial uses, I know in my experience with greenhouses, you'll have a caretaker on site to ensure that the greenhouses are operating properly and for security purposes, and that also happens to an extent on industrial sites as well, where you have somebody on site making sure the site is secure, and there's reduces the possibility of theft and whatnot. Thank you.
I think given our, and Jeffrey's next, but I think we have a lot in the county. If you look in the hamlets, residences on Hamlet Industrial, I think it's one of those things. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chairman. Just here in the hamlet of Dunmore, for example, further east down 2nd Avenue, we have where John Bruno used to have John Bruno Sandblasting. He had a permanent residence, plus he had his business there. So in a way, it's almost like, even though it's zoned Hamlet Commercial, Hamlet Industrial, in a way, it was kind of like a home-based business. But yeah, we do have examples of permanent residences associated with businesses in industrial districts. Now, I guess the only question in this case is, is there any indication that, that this would be, like you say, I think the concern here is whether this is for an extended period, which is indefinite, or whether there is actually any not being that it is zoned Hamlet Industrial, we don't want to turn this into a residential lot, but at the same time, the residential use would be accessory to the industrial component of how this is designated, right?
Yeah, I don't have a concern with as much with a residence in Hamlet Industrial as I do with a RV in Hamlet Industrial as a residence. I just don't know if that is compatible to the neighborhood. And I mean, I know, so essentially it's grandfathered with that house on there, but I mean, that house is not occupied, so I don't think we'd be opposed to another house being built there from that perspective. Go ahead, Dan.
I guess I'm still looking for clarification on my first question that I asked, is what your timeline was on what you thought you're going to build a suite for to live in. Because that's what we're looking for right now, is...
Well, I'm retired and I'm old age security, so money is of an issue also. I can't honestly say that in 5 years I can have a house built on it. On the income I have coming in, it's very limited. I don't know.
See, we're not looking at 5 years when we're looking at this application. We're looking at something being done within the next
5 months.
5 months, so.
And that's sort of the question. I cannot build something in 5 months. I do not have the funds to do that. With my trailer being 4 seasons, it's impressive. It looks good as any of the modular homes that are in that community now. And with a proper skirting around it, it's going to look just fine. And within the next couple of years, I can have that building tore down, possibly salvage the brick walls of the east part of that building to make something there.
Jeffrey?
Sorry, and I don't mean to muddy the waters here, but the other thing that maybe for MPC's consideration as well is that, and maybe this could be clarified as well, is that obviously Sabra is the applicant, and is it Jeffrey William Barron and Heather Barron are the actual property owners. So again, with the consent of the Barons, I guess all of this would be, in terms of any type of residence, would have to, as being that they're the property owner, would have to have, I guess, some involvement, correct? So maybe some more enlightenment or as to their relationship in this whole situation as the property owners, right? Obviously, they've signed the application, so they're aware, or at least it would appear they're supporting your application to the Planning Commission. But you know, certainly any type of permanent development on this site or any kind of activity, as they are the landowners, would also require their consent as well. So I just bring that to the attention of the Planning Commission.
Mr. Jeffrey, if I may speak.
Go ahead.
With the outcome of what happens here today, I will be the property owner. I have made agreements with them to purchase the property depending on what the outcome here is today.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Go ahead, Aaron.
Mr. Chairman, if the RV does have skirting and the appearance is similar to a manufactured home, would MPC consider looking at this as a manufactured home? That would be there for a year or two and then removed?
That doesn't fall under our tax bylaws then for...
Well, the question is, I mean, we haven't even touched upon water and sewer.
No.
She said you could hook, like it's a 4 seasons, so it can all be hooked to the services.
Is water and sewer already on this property?
Through the chair, Public Works did say that water and sewer are available. However, need to be re-examined, scoped or whatever to ensure that it's adequately working.
There is water and sewer on the property going to the adjoining house that has been condemned. So there would have to be a different route of it to be moved, which I don't have an issue about that, having it relocated where it comes to the trailer.
Yeah, I'm of two minds on this. One, you know, we've got a condemned house sitting on there. Your RV is going to look a lot nicer than that condemned house. But on the other hand, if this was Desert Bloom, would we be even talking about it? You know, and I know we have to look at each area and consider you know, I'd like to see that lot utilized because it's been abandoned for, I don't know how many years. I still do have a real concern with long-term residents in a RV in a hamlet. We've never allowed that before.
If we allow mobile home or RV to be a residence, like, isn't that asking for trouble? Now everybody's going to be in here asking, oh, I got an RV, I want to live in it.
Well, we give temporary permits for people to live in RVs while they're building a house. I mean, that, we've done that, we've just dealt with one out on Wholesome Road. I don't have an issue with that. It's the fact that we don't have a plan with this application that concerns me. Now, maybe you want to flesh this out a little bit and come to us with pictures of your mobile, of your RV, with plans on how to permanently mount it to the site, on how to hook up to the water and sewer, you know, more details. Maybe you want to do that, but I don't think as it sits, this is something that we'll get past here today. And maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Maybe we need a motion and move on from that perspective. What I'm doing is I'm giving you the option to perhaps flesh out this application with some more details and bring them back to us in the form of a postponement. Go ahead, Dan.
I don't know if Jeffrey can answer this or not, but if this RV is mounted and hooked up to sewer and water permanently, is that something that is taxed the same as a mobile home, or is it still considered an RV and not? Or that question's on your pay grade?
Yeah, that's kind of outside of my scope as an assessor. I certainly don't play one on TV, nor do I pretend to be one at the Municipal Planning Commission meeting. But you know, I think the assessment of it, you know, it's a gray area because it basically, you know, depending upon how it's modified and how it would fit under the Alberta Building and Safety Codes Act, right? And then I guess how does that fit with, you know, where it would sit in terms of its assessment and what category it would fall into. But in essence, you know, I'm not 100% certain. We do know for a fact that in the land use bylaw, well, there's three things we know. One, this area, of course, is an older part of Seven Persons, which was adjacent to the railway, which was designated for industrial, and the fact that there's very little industrial or commercial activity or business activity along this street because of the fact that, you know, times have changed. So really, the whole street is being ultimately utilized for residential purposes. So we get that. Secondly, I guess that it is zoned as hamlet industrial. Any type of residential use is accessory to the industrial types of uses that are on the site. And thirdly, we do know that in the land use bylaw it says that nowhere in a hamlet shall a recreation vehicle be utilized as a permanent residence. So I think that gets back to the idea here, and maybe Aaron can provide further clarity or further comment, but you know, the application is for temporary use until, as our understanding is, a more permanent residency can be developed. Now, the difficulty in all of this is the timelines and the indefinicy of what that would look like, because unfortunately, you know, we respect the financial situation that and the challenges that you have, and with good intentions, but you know, the concern we have is that, you know, what does that look like in terms of long term? So I think really I think you have two options, Mr. Chairman. I think you can either approve or refuse the application, or if the applicant is willing and agreeable to a postponement, just like you've alluded to bring back more information to help Municipal Planning Commission make a more informed decision.
Do you understand that, Sabra? I guess we're throwing this out to you for postponement to come back to us with some more details. And the planner could assist you in preparing a document that would help us make a decision. That's up to you. If you want us to make a decision today, or if you don't want a postponement and to flesh that out a little bit, we can make a decision today, and I'll just ask the members to make a motion one way or the other. Go ahead.
Just to give you some insight on that, the reason why they're asking for a postponement for you is if we make a decision today and we go against what you've brought in, you can't come back for 6 months with this application. But by doing a postponement today, it gives you a chance to reevaluate and try and bring it back to us.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so we're trying to help you out here with making, and you know, here's the thing, if this is 48 feet long, there's a lot of mobile homes, you know, in the hamlet that are 48 feet long. If you can come back to us and show us how you're going to permanently affix this to the property, I mean, it may be considered. So I can't speak for the rest of the commission though, but I mean, I think that's probably in your best interest at this point.
I had planned on putting a pad in there, a cement concrete, to put the trailer or the mobile on and close it in professionally.
Okay. So yeah, mobile homes typically are on blocks, and then they're cabled or attached, affixed to the ground. So that's something you could consider.
Same thing.
Exactly. So that's something you could consider. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I'm thinking that may be a possibility. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just, I had alluded to the development officer, if Aaron had any further comments or thoughts on this particular application, just didn't want her to not give her the opportunity to make those comments.
Mr. Chairman, if we look at the conditions of approval, we do require that a screening fence be constructed around the site in order to, you know, screen the vehicles, screen the RV, trailers and whatnot on the site. So I don't think that the visual impact of the site will be that much as seen from the adjacent roadway. And also the development agreement will have a fixed time. And once that time, if that time needs to be extended, we'll come back to MPC and get approval to extend that time period for the temporary accommodation in the mobile. And we'll also require, as part of the agreement, that any trailer hitch, wheels, whatever, be removed, and that the mobile be placed on blocks and also skirted to ensure that the appearance matches other manufactured homes in the area and that it does not look like an RV. And we'd also, obviously there need to be building permits involved if you're attaching services, I do believe, so building inspector could also provide information whether or not the structure is suitable for winter use, and if the applicant is stating that it is, then it probably is, but having that confirmation could be useful. Michelle?
If this is all mounted just like a regular modular home, and my question goes back to taxes, is if it's still an RV, but it's mounted and everything, can it be assessed as the same as a mobile home, or is it still going to be an RV? Because there's a big difference in the way taxes are collected that way.
I believe once it's affixed, it's accessible.
That's what I understand, that it would be accessible. And with the portion of the building of the old house with the brick wall, once I finish and tear down the other part of the house, that would also be taxable at that point. And with it fixed up would probably be enough room for a 1-bedroom, maybe 2 smaller bedrooms, but it would be functionable, because the water line, sewer line come to a part of the house already, so it would just be a matter of directing it where it needs to go.
Okay, Dan?
Well, if it's agreeable, I'm going to move for postponement so these things can be ironed out and brought back to us properly.
Do you agree to the postponement?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so Dan moves to postpone 22/210. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so your application has been postponed until next month. I think you can work with the planner after today to come up with some ideas and descriptions that may help us make a decision. And I think we can probably work something out in a fair fashion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so next on the agenda is Mr. Knodel. I see you back there in the corner. Would you take one of these chairs, please? Okay, so this is subdivision application 22CY18. Becky, will you be discussing this? Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you said, subdivision 22CY18, and this is located on Township Road 114, approximately 7 kilometers north of Highway 3, on the northeast 2011-7 west of the 4th. The proposal is to subdivide a 5.5 hectare agricultural parcel cut off from the remainder of the agricultural title by a canal right-of-way for the purposes of creating a separate title for the existing residence and yard. The owner of the property is Kyle Knodel, and the land use classification is Agricultural District 2. This application is intended to subdivide a 5.5 hectare or 13.6 acre agricultural parcel from an unsubdivided quarter section for the purposes of creating a separate title for the existing residence and yard. The proposed subdivision is cut off from the remainder of the agricultural title by a canal right-of-way. The remainder of the agricultural title contains dryland pasture and wheel move irrigation and is 60.9 hectares or 150.7 acres in size. The property is located along Township Road 114, approximately 7 kilometers north of Highway 3, and there are no oil or gas wells in proximity to the proposed subdivision. The proposed subdivision has an existing access approach from Township Road 114. The remainder of the agricultural title currently appears to not have an access approach constructed, but has the capacity to access Township Road 114, as well as the undeveloped road allowance, Range Road 74. Therefore, the Municipal Planning Commission, as a condition of subdivision approval, may be required to consider a condition for an access approach to be installed to grant access to the remainder of the agricultural title. The proposed subdivision will result in the first title to be taken out of the quarter section. A residence could still be constructed on the remainder of the agricultural title. The proposed subdivision is located outside of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan boundary. Under considerations, the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that maintaining an agricultural land base recognizes the value of the agricultural land for sustainable growth and diversification of the agricultural industry, as well as providing an opportunity for expansion for agricultural production in the region. Section 663 of the Municipal Government Act, Statutes of Alberta, states that a subdivision authority may not require the owner of a parcel of land that is subject of a proposed subdivision to provide reserve if one lot is to be created from a quarter section of land. Part 2.9, road access of the subdivision regulations, states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority to each lot that is created. Section 4.1.20, Land Use Policies of the Municipal Development Plan, states that the county may support the subdivision of an agricultural parcel that is fragmented by natural or man-made circumstances as long as the subdivided parcel can demonstrate physical and legal access to a public road and conforms to the minimum parcel size requirements in the land use bylaw and conforms with the county design guidelines and construction standards. And number 5, utility easements may be required between the proposed parcel and the remainder of the agricultural title. So when we circulated this application, Cypress County Finances replied that there is a local improvement for the West Side Water Co-op attached to this parcel. A letter should be submitted to both Cypress County and West Side Water Co-op indicating which parcel the local improvement is to remain attached to. If it is to transfer to the new parcel, the county would do so upon creation of the parcel and approval from West Side Water Co-op. The Director of Municipal Services replied that the intent of the proposed subdivision complies with Section 4.1.20, Subdivision Agriculture of the Municipal Development Plan, to create a separate agricultural title that is fragmented as a result of man-made circumstances, in this case the SMRID Canal, which creates a permanent physical barrier that separates the proposed subdivision parcel from the remainder of the agricultural title. The proposed subdivision is consistent with similar applications that have been approved in the past. Cypress County Public Works replied that they have no concerns with the proposed subdivision. TELUS Communications replied they have no objection. Fortis Alberta replied that they are the distribution wire service provider for the area and that no easement is required. Equus replied that they service the area and that they have no objections to the proposed subdivision. Equus currently provides electrical service to the Northeast 2011-7 west of the 4th and will need to maintain their existing utility right-of-way on that quarter. City of Medicine Hat Electric Distribution Engineering replies that the proposed subdivision is outside of their service area and therefore they have no concerns. Apex Utilities replies that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. Any relocation of existing facilities will be at the expense of the developer, and payment contributions required for new gas facilities will be the responsibility of the developer. City of Medicine Hat Environment, Land and Government Relations replied that there are gas facilities within proximity to the subdivision. Surface improvements are not permitted within the City of Medicine Hat pipeline right-of-way and within 100 meters of any wellhead unless the developer applies to and receives approval from the Alberta Energy Regulator and the City of Medicine Hat for a setback reduction. Any ground disturbance or surface improvements within 30 meters of any City of Medicine Hat gas pipeline or within 100 meters of any gas wells will require a crossing or proximity agreement. And number 10, the SMRID replied that they do not have any objections to the proposed subdivision as this parcel is classified as dry. If the subdivided parcel wishes to use non-potable water provided by the district for their trees or yard, the landowner must enter into a household purposes agreement with the district. All works and easements involved to provide water to the subdivided parcel will be at the landowner's cost. And no comments were received from Westside Water Co-op at the time of writing this report. So I'll move on to my recommendation, which is approval, subject to the following conditions. The developer is required to provide Cypress County finances with written notification if the intent is to transfer the local improvement tax for Westside Water Co-op to the subdivided parcel prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number 2, the developer is required to enter into a municipal services agreement with the county for the construction of an access approach from Township Road 114 to the remainder of the agricultural title. The municipal services agreement is to be executed and registered in conjunction with the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number 3, it is the developer's responsibility to enter into any necessary agreements with the SMRID for the supply of water to the proposed subdivision. The developer will be required to provide written evidence that the requirements of SMRD have been satisfied prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And number 4, the standard condition is that the developer is required to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, or agreements which are to be registered as a requirement for any affected utilities to the county prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Kyle, would you like to speak to your application at this time?
I just appreciate you guys seeing my application, and I guess the only real reason I want to do it is my parents are coming to retirement age, so I'd like to eventually move to their yard and retain the rest of my quarter.
Okay. I have a question. Do you have access from that undeveloped road allowance on the east portion of that quarter right now, don't you?
Yeah, there's actually, so to the west of Spurts Canal, there's actually one access there, and there's another access on the undeveloped road. But there is no, the ditches are just shallow, so there is no actual county approach there. But that is how I access the rest of that quarter to operate the farmland.
So my question is it necessary to have an access road to the main highway if you have one from the undeveloped road allowance?
So the municipal services agreement allows us to place that condition on there in the case that there was development on the property at a later date where we would require a constructed approach to county standards. Mr. Knolda doesn't have to construct that right away. He can continue to use the access, but in the case that one is needed in the future, we've covered that off.
Good, all right. Okay, any discussion? Okay, so Lloyd moves approval of 22 CY 18 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried.
Thank you for your time.
Wait, don't go anywhere yet. So your subdivision has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your subdivision approval. You're advised to begin working towards completing the necessary conditions and make arrangements to have the approved subdivided area surveyed if you have not already done so. You have 1 year from the date subdivision's approval date to have met all of the approval conditions and to have the survey plan submitted to Alberta Land Titles by your surveyor for registration of the separate title. If you have any further questions, you may contact the planner after today to discuss them. Thank you, Kyle. Okay, next up we have 22/212. Mr. Holbrook, is that you? Would you come take one of these chairs, please? Okay, so this is application 22/212. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. UFA Cooperative Limited is requesting MPC's approval to install the following signs on their future bulk fuel sales location in Dunmore. First sign would be a 5 by 5 foot by 2.75 foot fascia sign on the bulk fuel sale building that will be under construction. And the second sign would be a 10 by 20 billboard sign featuring promotional advertising, offers, and products. Thirdly, there will be one freestanding sign, 40 feet high, with a sign area of 229 square feet. The 5 by 5 by 2.75 fascia sign meets all land use bylaw requirements and is a discretionary Class 1 use in the A1 IDP district. The 10 by 20 billboard sign also meets land use bylaw requirements and is a discretionary Class 2 use in the A1 IDP district, which requires MPC approval. And the proposed freestanding sign exceeds land use bylaw requirements in terms of height, 40 feet versus 30 feet. The proposed sign area also exceeds land use bylaw requirements for area, 227 by 200 square feet. The UFA bulk sales fuel facility on the site was approved by MPC on June 20th, 2022 as DP 22/157. Land use bylaw review. In the land use bylaw 22/09, fascia signs must be affixed on a business frontage and must not exceed 25% of that frontage. The proposed fascia sign is 5.5 feet by 2.75 feet and covers approximately 5% of the business frontage, so it meets the land use bylaw requirements. No variances are required for that sign. The proposed 10 by 20 foot billboard sign is shown as location 2 on the applicant's site plan. This location will not cause any interference with potential future road signs or lights on the Trans-Canada Highway and will not impact traffic circulation on the site. So we thought rather than having the sign closer to the highway, bringing it closer to the building would reduce the possibility of any impacts to motorists on the highway. So yeah, basically 2 variances are requested for the freestanding sign proposed on the site. The first variance is a 10-foot variance for the height of the sign. The rationale for supporting this variance is the fact that the sign is on a highway in which vehicles are traveling 80 kilometers or higher. A taller sign is better noticed when traveling at these speeds. The area of the sign is proposed to be 229 square feet, which is a 14% variance. The clearance at the bottom of the sign is 18.6 feet, which will provide visibility at ground level. The overall site was circulated to various agencies and adjacent communities and underwent policy review under DP 22/157, which was approved by MPC in June 2022. Alberta Transportation issued a permit for the placement of the signs on June 6, 2022. Cypress County Utilities is within Dunmore boundaries, and they're mentioning servicing to the building. Cypress County Public Works, no comments. The town of Redcliffe had no comments. City Medicine had no comments. Development Officer's recommendation. We recommend to approve Development Permit 22/212, subject to the following conditions. First condition is responsibility of the developer and or owner to ensure that any applicable provincial or federal statutes or regulations are met with. The development shall comply with all regulations under the land use bylaw, except where a variance has been granted by the MPC. A new permit must be obtained for any future additions or changes in the use or the intensity of use of the land, buildings, or additional signage. The approval of this application does not in any way obligate Cypress County to provide access. With a pylon sign, a building permit would be required. That'd be condition 5. The applicant must contact Alberta One Call to ensure that buried utilities are located. Any changes, any increase in the sign, size of the sign, must be approved by MPC. We approve the height relaxation of 10 feet for the freestanding sign. And number 9, relaxation of 27 square feet for the maximum sign area. And this is the responsibility of the developer or owner to obtain any necessary approvals from Alberta Transportation. And I do have a few photos that were taken of the site. And here we are, we're looking north. This is the subject site. There's Township Road over on the left. Go to the next picture. Highway 1's to the north of the site. Go to the next picture. There's Highway 1 and the proposed site location marked off, and Township Road 120, the left. And here's another view of the site, Highway 1 to the north. We're looking northeast. And here we are looking south, Township Road 120. And east, proposed site location is marked. Highway 1 is shown. And this is south again. Okay, and that's it for pictures. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Aaron. Rob, would you like to speak to your application at this time?
It's very much the UFA standard signage which we've been installing. We just recently installed, we've got permits in 3 other locations for the same standard signage for our developments. So.
Okay. Thank you. Open floor discussion. Go ahead, Jeremy.
This oversized sign, is that a temporary sign? The one that we're giving the potential 10-foot variance?
The billboard sign, we put an application in to be permanent, but it's only going to be used for UFA purposes only. It won't be leased out or anything else. It's originally it'll say, UFA coming soon, and then we'll use it as promotional things on products and especially special products or what's on sale. But it's not going to be changed every week. It'll be every couple of months.
And it's not a digital sign, like it's just from the pictures it looks like it's just a wooden plastered sign, like it's not going to be something flashing on the highway?
Yeah, fundamentally it's on a wooden frame. It's very low, so it's not like your typical billboard sign. It's very, very low. And so you'll be viewing that probably from the highway, and especially when you actually drive it in to see what's on offer and what it'd be promotional, not only on our petroleum side but on our ag side as well.
So it's
Thank you.
basically the same with that you'd see in any other UFA in the province?
Sorry?
It'd be the same sign you'd see at any other UFA in the province?
The billboard sign is pretty new to UFA, but they're starting to go in very few locations as we our marketing department develops it as we go on.
Okay. Okay, Dan?
I just got a question for clarification on this first one. Is that it's a responsibility of the developer to ensure the applications for provincial and federal status and regulations? Is that calling it a engineered plan for that?
Any provincial or federal regulations, and that could include, provincial regulations could include a building permit, or it could include getting approvals from Alberta Transportation. And we've mentioned the building permit and Alberta Transportation separately as conditions. So essentially what we're doing is we're ensuring that all regulations are met besides the Cypress County regulations.
So we're covered with going that extra 10 feet high. We're covered on anything for wind in this area or anything like that?
Mr. Chairman, through the chair, the pylon sign would be, I believe the pylon sign would be engineered and approved by a building inspector due to the height.
That's all I was looking for clarification, if we're covered in that or not with these.
Yeah, we would provide fully stamped engineered drawings for the foundations.
Okay. Nigel?
The 40-foot sign seems like a fairly significant variance. Have we approved 40-foot signs in the past?
In a previous, I am not sure in the county, but I can direct this to Jeffrey.
Old guy question.
Yeah. Certainly, I think we have approved signs that have exceeded 30 feet in height. Certainly, this location is outside of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan Airport Protection Overlay. So essentially, that's why the City of Medicine Hat probably had no concerns or objections. So.
Okay. Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I'm good. You want to approve it?
Oh, I was just going to say something. Go ahead.
I'm good with it as long as we're covered. That's why I asked that question. So.
Okay, Michelle, do you have something?
All I was going to say is if you look at the drawings in there, the sign has to be 40 feet because the signage itself is 30 feet.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, Nigel moves approval of 22/12 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. So your development permit has been approved, subject to meeting conditions which were previously discussed. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there's now a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of this permit. The development permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks. If no appeal is filed within 21 days from the date of issue, the permit will become valid at that time. If you have any questions, you can contact the development officer to discuss them after today's meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is 21 CY11 subdivision time extension request. Mr. Kraus, are you here? Can you take one of the chairs up front, please? So just so you know, to speak, you press the little button on that. Okay, you got it. Good. All right. Okay, so this is 21 CY11, and Becky will be taking over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this was a subdivision that was approved last September, and it was located on Southwest 1511 4 west of the 4th, and it was for to subdivide 2 existing yard sites from an unsubdivided quarter section in order to create a separate title for each yard site. So as an update, all the conditions of approval have been met except for one, and that is to apply for a development permit for the 2 existing storage containers that were on one of the parcels. So we are asking for a 1-year time extension to allow for that development permit consideration by the Municipal Planning Commission in October. The application has been received. And then that will allow for that approval time and appeal period. So that's what we are requesting today.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gross, would you like to speak to your application?
I was under the impression that the CCANs, I concur with the board on an extension. I was not aware, or I had forgotten, one or the other, about the CCANs permit. So there was another item that I would like to bring up, which does not be part of the CCAN issue, but that's a different kettle of beans, I guess. So I can live with that.
Okay, open the floor to discussion. Jeremy? Jeremy wants to move it? Okay. So Jeremy moves approval of 21 CY 11 time extension request. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Yeah, we don't really have a blurb for this, so I think we all know what's going on now, so you have a year to complete the conditions as presented in the original application.
Okay. With regards to the other item, do I have to make special representation to that?
For what item is that?
The surveying documents were presented to the council or to the county, but the documents that were never apparently received by the county. I have no way of proving that the county received them or that the surveyors supplied them. And see, it's not really part of the CCAN issue. So that's why I was wondering if I had to make a special presentation with regards to another matter with regards to the surveyor and the county.
I mean, you can discuss it, I think, with the development staff, that issue. As of right now, I think that's the only thing outstanding on this, in completing this subdivision is the CCAN application. But Jeffrey, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Becky and I just were reviewing the subdivision application file, and it does look like the potential registered plan that would be submitted to Alberta Land Titles has been submitted by your surveyor, which is Midwest Surveys. And so along with that was the request for endorsement. So once the conditions have been completed that were originally attached to the original approval, then certainly the county can endorse the subdivision and allow your surveyor to send it in to Alberta Land Titles. But that's a conversation that you can have with our assistant planner, Becky, and she can follow up with you on the details. And it sounds like you've got an application into our development officer for the CCANs. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, our planning and development staff will do a follow-up with you, Mr. Kroos, and we'll get the details straightened out.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Okay, so on 21 CY 12, it doesn't say whether anybody's going to be in attendance, so I'm assuming they're not. Okay, so we'll deal with that now. 21 CY 12. Becky, take that one away.
Yeah, you bet. So this was an application submitted by Global Raymac on behalf of Emery and Diana Collins, located at Northeast 12, 13-7 west of the 4th, Plan 1413380, Block 1, Lot 5. And this was to subdivide and consolidate a 0.73 hectare portion into an existing country residential title in order to create a property boundary adjustment. And as an update, the surveyor is waiting for a signed easement agreement from Fortis, and there are no other outstanding conditions. So we are recommending a 1-year extension to allow finalization of that agreement.
All right. Move it. Okay, Michelle moves approval of the time extension request for 21 CY12. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Mr. Moody is not going to be in attendance for this one, 19/113. Time extension request. Aaron, do you want to speak to this one, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to extend the approval for a single detached home for a third time for MPC consideration. The single detached house is located at 7517 Range Road 32. Extensions were approved by MPC in the following dates. Okay, the approval of the house was on August 13th. The first extension was on August 13th, 2020. Second extension was September 14th, 2021. The current proposed approval extension for DP 19133, as I said, would be the third extension if approved by MPC. Land use bylaw review. The question of granting approval extension for development permits is regulated by Section 16.8 of the Land Use Bylaw. Section 16.8B of the Land Use Bylaw assumes one is making progress meeting the conditions of approval that were imposed on the development permit, in this case by the Municipal Planning Commission. There has been no progress with meeting any of the conditions or constructing this house, Mr. Chairman. Also, the Land Use Bylaw has undergone significant change when the current Land Use Bylaw was adopted by City Council. The new bylaw allows uses that were not available under the previous Land Use Bylaw. Second homes can now be approved as permitted uses in the A2 Agriculture District as a secondary suite. A second house on a site in the A2 district no longer needs to go to MPC for approval. This is the third request for the approval extension of this permit. Since 2019, as I said, no progress has been made. And also, our land use bylaw has changed significantly. So, staff do not support extending DP 19/113 for a third time. The applicant should reapply for this dwelling as a secondary suite under the current land use bylaw when they're ready to build. That way we won't have to take that development permit to MPC. It'll just be something that the development officer could approve. So option one is to refuse development application extension because the land use bylaw has changed significantly since 2019 when the application was made, and the applicant has made no progress regarding the construction of this home or meeting conditions. And option two would be to approve the extension with the current conditions of approval. I do have the air photo, but I don't have any site photos for the site. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Aaron. Dan moves for denial of time extension request for 19/113. All those in favor? Carried.
Too late now.
Okay, all right. Look at us go, we got back on time again. All right. Okay, next let's talk about we look at the miscellaneous. Any discussion or questions, concerns regarding I guess the land use amendments? Okay. Applications for viewing. Any discussion regarding that? Okay, next meeting is Tuesday, October 11th. I got it on my schedule. Okay. All right. I guess that's it. Okay. I adjourn the meeting.